Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
Military Times, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Military Times. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the space station.
Thank you very much for having us today. Colonel Copra, it's been 30 years since you graduated from West Point. What would you tell the current class of cadets about getting into a career in spaceflight?
That's a great question. I don't think I quite envisioned that I would have this job when I was a cadet many years ago. But one of the great things about the West Point experience is that it's a great training ground for not just military service and the service I've had at NASA, but life as well, because it's a strong academic, physical, and military preparation. And so for the young people that are at the academies, and particularly West Point, one thing to consider is that, in our job, it's very technical and it's very operational, and those are important things and important backgrounds to have. But at the end of the day, what we do is very similar to the military in that it's a team sport, and being able to work as a team is the most critical skill.
For Captain Scott Kelly, you've been aboard the station for just about a year on the current expedition. How does that time in space compare to, say, a shipboard deployment?
Yeah, it's quite different. I did one 6-month cruise on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, and then a shorter, 2 to 3 month. I think it was 2 months on the George Washington, a little shakedown cruise. And the difference is on the aircraft carrier there with more than 5,000 other people. You have much more room. You can go out on the flight deck, get some fresh air. I was a pilot, so I got to fly off the ship. We went into port occasionally, not too much, but we did do that occasionally. Whereas here, you never leave. It's a much more confined space, but there are similarities. I mean, it's a very operationally oriented environment where, like Tim was saying, teamwork is very important. So my experience on those cruises and on the ships and on the deployment is great training for this, but it is quite different in a lot of ways too.
2 years ago, Military Times spoke with Terry Virts and Captain Butch Wilmore about a future mission to Mars. Where do we stand toward that goal right now?
We have, I think, a lot of the technical capability and a lot of, good understanding of what we need to do from a, physiological standpoint, risk mitigation. I mean, there's still certain things we need to learn. I think, radiation is a big factor. But, getting us to Mars, I think, is more about the, public and political willpower to do so, because even though it's something I think is quite worthy and for the expense and very important to us as a as a species to continue to expand our horizons, it's something that's going to be expensive, and we need the support to do it. So I think it's more of a matter of choice than it is technical feasibility.
Tim, in your recent spacewalk, you had a malfunction of your spacesuit. Tell us what happened. Was there any fear during that event, and how did you get through it?
I might have been the least worried person out of the whole team because, when you talk about water in a spacesuit, it sounds like a pretty dramatic event. And the things that we've done, because we've had this circumstance before in terms of risk mitigation and the level of water that was in the helmet was such that I really never had a high level of concern. But I know that the whole team was very concerned about the circumstance. One of the interesting parts of the whole experience was the fact that since we've had this problem before, we've instituted some methodologies in terms of how we get people back inside quickly and the things we have in the suit that can help protect us. So, I was never actually very concerned because I knew we had lots of margin and time. And I was so impressed with how both the ground team and how my compatriot Tim Peake outside handled the whole circumstance. So I think it turned out well. I think hopefully we'll understand better what exactly led to the water in the helmet. But at the end of the day, we got our mission done, and we had some risk mitigation in place to help out.
Today is the 30th anniversary of the Shuttle Challenger explosion. Can you gentlemen give me your thoughts on the events of that day?
Yeah, I was in college in 1986, and I was going to class, and it was lunchtime, and I typically would watch the space shuttle launches, and I, saw what happened, and immediately, pretty much knew that it was a catastrophic accident, and I didn't know the crew members of Challenger, obviously, because I was in college at the time, but it was quite a moving and emotional experience. For me, as growing up, astronauts were my heroes, and it was tough to see them lost like that on a space flight on national television, and I feel honored and privileged to follow in their footsteps, and I think that what we do in space now is fulfilling their dream and carrying on their legacy, and I think we need to just keep pushing ahead and trying to achieve great things, and on days like today, think back to what they sacrificed.
Tim, a few years ago, we spoke, and you weren't sure whether at the end of the Space Shuttle program you would stick with the program. What made you stay with spaceflight?
I think all of us that have experienced spaceflight, or even those that are in the astronaut corps that are looking forward to that, have a true passion for this kind of work. And both the passion for the type of work we do, but the people that we work with is one that is really hard to replace or to duplicate. And so, having flown once and then having a delay in order to get back to flight, to me, I think probably the main reason I decided to try for another flight was just the fact that I love the people that I work with, I love the mission, and I think it's very, very important, both nationally and internationally.
On Earth, there's competitions between nations in the Arctic, in the South China Sea, throughout the globe. What makes space so different that there is this spirit of cooperation between nations in technology and in exploration?
Well, I think it's a few things. It's a common ground that no one has claim over. I think that's one aspect of it. Whereas on Earth, people stick a flag in the dirt sometimes and say it's theirs and try to and do, and rightfully so, I guess in some cases, you defend your territory and protect your interests. But here it's been well established, and it's an international agreement that this is a place for the common good and cooperation, and it's complicated and it's expensive, and international cooperation not only helps in those two areas, but it also provides redundancy in systems. The space station has a lot of redundancy because the majority of it was made in either the in the U.S. or European nations or Russia. We have different ways of scrubbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. We have different ways of supplying the space station with redundant systems, and it's critical that all that stuff works. And if something breaks, it's great to have a backup. And I think that's been one of the great parts about the space station program is that we're working on something that's very important. It's very difficult and challenging, and we're doing it in a international way that shows that we can, cooperate even when at times we may have our differences on Earth.
Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, both for joining us. One last thought. Are you two going to be staying with the program after this?
So I'm at 10% remaining on this year in space, and to me, that seems like I still have a long ways to go, and so I haven't really given it an incredible amount of thought. Certainly, I have given it some thought, but not, not what I would be, willing to share with you today. But appreciate the question.
I guess all I can add to that is that my horizon right now is about 4.5 months. We have a ton of work to do here between now and the 5th of June when we come back home. And so I think we'll focus on the immediate future and look what happens after that once I get back home.
And have a very safe trip home.
Thank you so much.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the Military Times interview.
Thank you, Military Times. Station, please stand by while we reconfigure video and audio communications.